Hey everyone! So, for one, this is going to be on a different channel than before, and that's how it's going to be from this point on, but I've already mentioned that on the other channel. And two, I realize it's almost time for the next midnight release, and I still haven't put up a video for Prometheus. And there's a few reasons for that. Number one, it's not as urgent that I put up a video for Prometheus because you will see everyone else's review of Prometheus. I gotta find out what's playing this week. It looks like Rock of Ages, and I'm not excited about the prospect of that. Maybe there's some other really crappy movie playing this week. That'd be fun. So far, all the movies this summer have been either good or or in the case of Battleship, hilarious. So, Prometheus. Okay, this one's probably going to go pretty heavy on the spoilers thing because everyone's told you the plot to the movie already, and there's a few things I think people end up leaving out that I think are kind of important or at least kind of interesting. So, yeah, here's the spoiler-free version of it for everyone who wants to jump out immediately and who hasn't seen this film yet, which I'm kind of surprised. But since it did not actually win at the box office this weekend, thanks to Madagascar 3, there have to be a lot of people out there who haven't seen it yet. So, number one, this movie's okay. It's not great. It's not terrible. You know, in spite of the reviews you're seeing on both ends of it, it's just okay. There's a lot of it that I don't like, but again, I'm not a fan of horror movies, and I mentioned this before. And I do like that it is more science fiction-y than horror. It's not quite as gory as most horror films, so if you're worried about that, you don't need to be too afraid of that. So, it's still easily a hard R science fiction movie, but you could go and see this without, if you're a little squeamish. It might not be that bad. Definitely a little better than most of the actual Alien films. But the other thing I need to mention here is I have not actually seen an entire one of the previous Alien films straight through from beginning to end. Yeah, I know that seems kind of embarrassing for someone like me who is a big science fiction fan, but honestly, the franchise never really appealed to me that much. I know that's a really weird concept to come out of my mouth, considering I love the idea of the interstellar travel and the whole deep space and high fantasy kind of science fiction, the future fantasy, and like Star Wars aliens, or the L's in Gundam 00, or... Well, I'm going to be mentioning Macross a lot in this review, so... Yeah. But, yeah, it wasn't that interesting to me because the aliens really contribute nothing. They're just monsters. They're not all that special. There's nothing really special about them. But the concept of the space jockeys from the original Alien, that was actually something that would have been far more interesting to me had I not actually seen Robotech when I was younger. So... The movie basically starts off with our plucky scientists, Shaw and... Is it Hoffman? Halloway, that's it. Shaw and Halloway, the woman and the man, you know, because their last names don't really tell you that, going through these caves in the Highlands, I suppose, and finding cave paintings there. And a really old one that's really important because it shows this thing that all these other cave paintings show. So then we cut to them on board the ship Prometheus. And everyone's waking up from cryostasis, except for the robot who may have gone a little space crazy from being awake for 2 years, because I think even robots are susceptible to space madness. So they wake up, they're told you get a little bit to know each of these little characters' personalities, little snippets here and there. You already know that most of these people are just totally cannon fodder. But the basics here are we have Charlize Theron's character, who seems to actually have been waking up periodically through the process of cryostasis. And she I'll say this right now, she is by far the most intelligent character in the entire film. Her character's name is Vickers. She is easily the most intelligent character in the film. No one else even comes close, except for maybe the captain. And the captain's got enough kind of silliness to him to not quite reach her level. So, they're on the ship, they meet this hologram of Wayland, the guy who sent them on the space cruise, and he says, okay, you're here to investigate the origins of human life somewhere else in the universe, because apparently the Raelian religion was right. Go for it. Also, this is David, he's a robot, in case you didn't already know that. I think the audience knew, but point is, a few people ask really intelligent questions about the situation, and Shaw passes it off as, yeah, I don't know crap, I just believe that they're God. Oh, thanks. Thanks for that. You've already proven that every scientist in this movie is probably going to be an idiot. Which is true. But they go to the surface of the planet. They're told to wait until, like, nightfall and start the next day, but Holloway doesn't have it, so he hauls his entire team of scientists in there. They're told the atmosphere of the planet, while similar to Earth in certain ways, it has enough oxygen to sustain life. That's something important to note, to a point. But there's so much CO2 in it that it'd kill you if you breathed it for too long. So, yeah, there's that. Thing is, they go into this cave, and they find that way down deep in the cave, before they actually get into the bowels of the caverns that they're exploring, the atmosphere is somehow breathable. So, they all take their helmets off. Holloway does it first. I swear that Holloway is the guy who's pretty much just trying to see how long he can do stupid things in a horror movie and live. And he actually makes it a pretty good length. But, anyway, they go down into these caverns, they find, like, David finds these hieroglyphs on the wall, and he seems to understand what's going on. They eventually end up in this one room where there's a giant head of one of the precursor race, these engineers, that are supposed to be the space jockeys from the original, although they're about a quarter the size of the space jockeys, from what I've heard. Yeah, that's a problem. But, the basics there is they go to this room, there's a bunch of these urns leaking black oil, death, evil stuff, and they find the head of one of these dead aliens in the room as well. So they find what looks like a crystal egg in the back of the room, but that never gets brought up again. And it's honestly a really beautiful scene. Like, the actual visuals in it are really nice, but that's kind of how the entire movie works. It's beautiful, but just about every character is so stupid that there's really not much of a point. They take the urn and the head back to the ship. But when they go back there, there's these two guys who left earlier, one of whom was mapping the facility and could see the map. These two guys who left earlier get lost in the caves and can't make it back in time. So they get stuck in the caves during, like, a glass storm. It's like a sandstorm, only with actual chunks of glass flying in it, apparently. So they're kind of walking around in the tunnels, and at one point the captain comes on the radio and is like, hey, one of the little pod thingies detected a life signal. And they're like, wait, what? So they wisely decide to go in the opposite direction of where that life sign came from, but they go back to the room of, like, bubbling urns of just disgusting crap, and so the geologist, the guy who was mapping the entire place and has, like, this stupid mohawk haircut, starts smoking weed out of his spacesuit, which is amazing that they even have that capability. I gotta give the future some credit there. They would actually build spacesuits that have a mechanism for you to smoke while you're wearing them. I only give it credit because it pretty much proves that Darwin's theory of evolution doesn't quite work once a society becomes intelligent enough to coddle the idiots. So, sorry if that sounded a little mean, but these guys really are so incredibly stupid that you know they're going to die as soon as they get lost. So, they go back to this room, and this alien penis testicle snake thing comes out of the water, and it's just like sitting there, looking at him. And there's no like discernible eyes on this thing, it's just kind of sitting there. And the biologist walks up to it and is like, "Oh, it's beautiful." And by the way, I have heard that biologists can occasionally be this completely insane. Which is probably why the last thing I would take on an expedition to find alien life is a biologist. Or at least I wouldn't take them on the away team. Because they do something stupid like this. Or they try to get close. Like, we all remember things like The Lost World. Remember the character, I think, Sarah in The Lost World? The woman who went to the island early. And she would get up so close to these big-ass dinosaurs that could crush you in an instant to get pictures. She grabs a baby T-Rex to try and heal it. The fact that she didn't die in that movie is pretty funny in and of itself. But that's what this guy is, except he's in a hard R science fiction movie, so he's doomed. And this thing, like, even gives him the standard warning of opening up from looking like testicles into, like, some kind of demonic white vagina, and just hissing at him. And he reaches out and touches it. Stupid move. He basically ends up getting mouth raped to death because this thing breaks his arm in such a way as to, like, shred open his containment suit. And then, like, you know, mouth sex, because that's normal for alien. Face full of alien wing wong. And while that's happening, the other scientist cuts what seems to be the head of this thing, basically the giant, like, balls off this thing, with a knife, and gets sprayed in the face with acid blood for his trouble. So if you didn't know there was acid blood in the Alien franchise, don't worry, that's the only thing that you kind of want to know going into this film. Anything else you know is actually probably not going to really help. So, there's that. They go through the process of all this, they eventually go back to the ship, and it turns out David, the robot, is actually the villain. Shock! The robot is evil! I think the robots have been pretty neutral in the other Alien movies. I know Bishop wasn't a villain. And I'm pretty sure the one in Alien Resurrection wasn't really a villain either, so there's that. But, point is, that's all pretty much irrelevant. They go back to the ship, and, like, they inspect the head. Like, they figure out from just, like, basic observation that the thing that's on the outside of the head is not an exoskeleton, but a helmet. And so they take it off, and they see what looks like a giant person's head, which should surprise nobody in the audience because we saw one of these people at the very beginning of the film, who for some reason decided to drink a martini made of alien black goo of death and fall off a cliff and disintegrate. I have no idea what the hell's going on there, but maybe these people actually aren't the creators of the aliens. Maybe they found them. It's always a possibility. But anyway, they try to, like, revive the head with electricity to kind of make it seem like it's alive, but all that ends up doing is exploding the head. Because, science. And, yeah, the scientists in this thing are kind of dumb. But they take a sample of the DNA from the alien, and they run it against, like, a sample they have in a database of human DNA. And it's considered an exact match, which, considering these aliens are basically 8 foot tall total albinos, I could kind of see some of it, but I'm not 100% sure that I buy that the human race is actually based on them. But now we can call them the bird humans, so I suppose that's fun. Point is, David proceeds to infect Holloway, who's getting drunk off his ass, and has one of the best moments in the movie with David when the two of them are conversing about why humans created robots in the first place, and how disappointing it would be to get a certain kind of answer from the creator of your species. Which of course brings up the question of, why do you even care what the creator of your species thinks? But either way, he goes back to Shaw's room because those two are romantically involved, and that was pointed out early in the movie, so nothing new there. And she brings up the possibility that she's supposed to be infertile or something, and almost immediately after that, they fuck, because apparently nothing gets a couple hotter than realizing they can't have a kid. You know what? Sure, why not? Anyway, I am mean-spirited about a movie that I thought was okay, am I? But they go back, and here's something I kind of missed earlier. When the two guys are getting killed in the room with all the urns, the captain and Vickers, Charlize Theron's character, they have this conversation where the captain's like asking why in the world she would bother coming all the way out here for like prestige or fame or whatnot, when the captain basically says, you know, pretty much, he almost feels like he's referencing that line from Futurama about all of man's greatest achievements were an extension of the desire to impress the opposite sex. So basically he's asking her, you know, if you want to get laid, couldn't you just stay back on Earth and, you know, flirted? And so she's telling him, it's like, yeah, that's true. That's why I'm not here for that reason. And so he asks if she's a robot. And there's a lot of cool reveals that could have come out about Charlize Theron's character. Either that she was a robot or that she was biologically male. And I'll get to that in a minute. But apparently neither of those is the case, because she then proceeds to have the captain come to her quarters in 10 minutes. And the captain just goes, if you can't be with the one you love, then love the one you're with. And, you know, when a movie can remind me of El Hazard, that is no bad thing. So, moving on from all that, they go back to the room with the urns in it. They find the dead guy, or they find a dead guy. The one that has face melted, I think. They don't seem to find the other guy, or maybe I just didn't catch it, which leads to some confusion a little later. But, yeah, those two guys, they're gone. They're out. They're not coming back in any form at all. Because one of the people that gets infected by alien stuff turns into a zombie. And it turns out it's Holloway, because he got infected through David putting a black death goo in his drink. And he noticed it, he just didn't say anything, because, you know, it's not like they're on a ship with a shitload of scientists and an advanced medical system and, you know, things that might have been able to at least figure out what was going on, if not save him. But anyway, they go down there, Holloway ends up, like, really suffering from the alien infection. They all go back to the ship. Charlize Theron's out there in the dock with the flamethrower. Mac wants the flamethrower. Mac wants the what? And she's just got the flamethrower out there, and she's like, okay, all of you can come back on the ship. He stays out there. And every one of the scientists... Now, it makes sense that Shaw would do this, because she just fucked him. It's clear they have an emotional romantic relationship. But everyone else is bitching about this, too. It's like, this guy is horribly infected with some kind of weird thing that nobody knows what it is, and the only person on the ship smart enough to just say, look, he can't come back on the ship, is the villain. This gets into the biggest problem I honestly have with this movie, and that's the designated villain bullshit involving Charlize Theron's character. She's not the villain. She's selfish, She's in the realm of maybe, lawful neutral or so. She's not evil. Not to the degree that anyone would state. And the ultimate proof of this fact is when Holloway pushes Shaw away, walks over to the side, and says, "Do it!" when he's infected by the alien thing. He actually asks her to kill him. So she does. And she looks utterly horrified by what she just did. She's not the villain, okay? And I hated the fact that the movie set her up as one so hard, just throughout all of the beginning of it. They try to bring it back to the idea that she's a villain later on when she bitches at the real villain of the movie. But what she's saying is accurate and reasonable. So from this point on, the movie starts going a mile a minute, as we find out that Shaw's pregnant with some kind of horrifying alien monster. So instead of going into cryosleep and waiting till they get back to Earth to figure out what the hell's going on here, she runs down to this surgical bed we were introduced to earlier in the movie, which seems to be calibrated only for men. Which leads to the second possible reveal of Charlize Theron's character that isn't true. That maybe she was a guy all along. Well, even if she wasn't... It's like, even if she was born a guy, she would probably have a guy setup system. But point is, it doesn't have mechanisms in it to do things like a cesarean section. So she basically hard codes what she needs the thing to do, climbs into the bed with like a syringe of painkillers, or a couple syringes of painkillers, and just starts sticking herself with them, while this thing like lasers open her stomach, and probably uterus, reaches down in there with a claw, like a little claw machine type claw, and pulls out like this ball with an alien thing in it. Congratulations, it's a squid. So, yeah, that happens, and it's actually kind of an awesome scene, but at the same time really funny. And I just know that if Seltzer and Friedberg ever get to make another damn movie, and they decide to parody this, it's gonna be some fucking kid running the claw machine thing. Because that's the stupidest thing I can come up with, so it's probably what they find funny about it. But that would require that Prometheus be the central film that they're parodying. And I'm not sure if they would do that. It didn't win at box office first weekend, it wasn't really as much of a blockbuster. But they haven't really done sci-fi horror yet, so who knows? Maybe that's their future. But anyway, she runs around through the rest of the movie having had her stomach stapled up, which was one of the funniest and kind of most badass things in the film. But she's got to have some serious internal problems here. Like, she ripped the umbilical cord apart herself, which, it's worth noting, would release theoretically infected alien DNA into her bloodstream, maybe? But they are using lasers, so it may have actually cauterized it, preventing bleeding. It's kind of hard to tell exactly what's going on here, but she's in visible pain for about, say 20 out of the last 30 minutes of the film. And this film goes on for about 5 minutes too long. So, you find out that Wayland, the guy from the hologram beforehand, is alive and happens to be slowly dying of being a hybrid of Biff Tannen and Emperor Palpatine, played by... crap, I knew who it was a minute ago. Oh well. Point is, he wants to go down and talk to the aliens. David's been working with him the whole time. Charlize Theron's actually been trying to stop his plan, although for theoretically selfish reasons, but screw it, if she'd stopped the plan, it would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. And they all head off to go visit the alien, along with Shaw, who for some reason is still able to walk despite being in absolutely horrifying, crippling pain. It's a really good thing she was able to find all the syringes. But, point is, turns out David found an alien earlier in the film. Like, one of the Robotech masters. And they go and visit him. And they open up the little cryostasis pod he's in. And this is after David has figured out that their plans were to send the ship, that is actually what this cave is kind of built off of, is a ship, are to send this ship to Earth and drop the aliens on Earth and basically kill everybody. For why? No reason, apparently. We don't really know. Who cares? Point is, they wake up the guy, and he gets up, David asks him something. We don't know what it is. There are no subtitles, which I actually like. And then the bird human here basically grabs David's head, rips it off his body, tosses it aside, and then just starts massacring everybody except Shaw, who suddenly gets over any physical pain she has from having her stomach stapled together, and runs out to go tell the ship captain, it's like, it's a ship carrying horrible achy pain, you need to destroy it. And so, they crash the Prometheus into the alien ship, destroying the ship. Which, of course, doesn't kill the giant alien inside because, logic. Hey, maybe they're just made of tougher stuff than their offspring. But, point is, Charlize Theron's character gets crushed by the falling alien ship for basically no reason whatsoever except to be hideously gruesome. But the little section of the ship that has the surgical bed in it is actually a life pod that could sustain life for upwards of 2 years. Fun. So, Shaw goes back there. And by the way, everyone else is dead at this point except for Shaw and apparently David. Because he's a robot, he can live with his head and body separated. And she goes over to this thing, she grabs all the emergency supplies from it, I think, and then she grabs a fire axe because she hears something horrible inside there. Turns out her kid didn't die in the surgical bed thing when she used the decontamination thing on it. The, decontamination gas. And now it's all grown up and ready to mouth rape something. Conveniently enough, the Zentradi comes in there to basically get mouth raped by this horrifying squid monster, and our main character escapes to go pick up David's head, get her cross back, which is a stupid subplot I'm not even really going to go into, takes David's presumably head with her to another spaceship that apparently David can fly without having hands, despite the fact that hands are kind of necessary for the process of activating and using it. But whatever. Point is, they fly off to the alien planet, presumably to get horrible revenge against them for all the damage they've done and the plans they had to commit genocide. So, yeah, I'm very, very hard on this film, but that's primarily because it's a horror movie. Wait, there's something else. Oh, that's right. There was more to the ending than that. There was an entirely unnecessary scene that should not have been there. At all. In which we see a proto-xenomorph burst out of, the back of the dead Robotech Master. And just... ugh. God. Why? Why did you do that? Why did you have to tie in this okay movie that had its own ideas and its own plot so heavily into the Aliens franchise that you felt it was necessary to put a stinger at the end of the damn movie? Like that. That's just so pointless, unnecessary, and stupid. That... it's probably the one thing I'm angry about in this film that no one else said, that no one else has problems with, apparently. That is the stupidest fucking thing. But you know what? We're kind of low on time, and I don't have time to get into how stupid it is. So, how was the movie overall? Again, as I said, it was okay. Special effects were fine. The characters were really stupid. It really wasn't anything more than a horror movie that had some more interesting science fiction-y stuff in it. That's really it. But yeah, it took me a while to organize my thoughts and figure out how I wanted to do this review, because this is kind of a weird movie. It's one of those movies... Sometimes when I go see a movie, I can immediately comment on it, like with Snow White and the Huntsman. I mean, I knew my opinions on that film. They really haven't changed. Sometimes it only becomes obvious later, after I've had some time to let it sink in, that a movie might be actually really bad. That's generally why reviewing a film immediately after you see it at midnight isn't necessarily the best call, but it does make for some fun experiences. So, next time we are reviewing something. I'll figure it out. It'll probably end up being Rock of Ages, because I don't know what else is playing, and yeah, that's about all I got. So, see y'all next time.